Your name is Dave.
Yes.
You don't have to give out your last name.
Secret.
I think I'm going to point out the obvious first, and that we're wearing a disturbingly similar outfit. But at the same time, what's interesting is that you end up with different, aesthetically, we look the same, but different outcomes in life. How old are you?
I'm 40.
40 years old?
Mm-hmm.
You have an alias, as I understand it.
Yes. Yes, I do.
What is that?
Stabber Dave.
Stabber Dave.
Yes.
When were you given that name?
I was given that name back in April of 2000.
April 2000. So how old were you back then? Help me do some math.
Roughly about 28, 27, 28.
Years old. So what led to... Who first of all, who provided that alias for you?
A friend of mine was at a local bar in Detroit, and then the 10 o'clock news came on, and happened to see my mugshot and the brief story about why I was on the news and why my mugshot was on camera. And he said, "Hey, there's Dave." And he said, "Hey, it's Stabber Dave," and just kind of took off from there.
And it stuck.
Yep.
Stuck with you.
Yep.
Till today. Yet still.
Yep. Yep.
When you're in the bar at that time, were your mugshot's up on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Had you already? Were they looking for you?
Oh, I
or
wasn't.
Is this something that was?
I wasn't in the bar at that time. I was probably out of holding and on my way to housing over at Macomb County.
So you'd been arrested?
Yeah, at this point, yep.
So let's talk about this particular accident. I don't know, you tell me. So did you go to... You were convicted. Let's start with what you were accused of. What were you accused of doing?
Okay, I was facing 5 assault charges, felony assault charges.
On a single incident?
On a single incident, yeah. The big one was assault with intent to murder, and there was assault with a deadly weapon, and I forget the other 3. But they were right in line with like felonious assault, and
were all 5 of them felonies?
Yes, they were all felony charges.
The most severe seeming to be intent to murder. Is that actually a title of a crime, or?
Oh yeah. They're
called intent to murder. It's not first degree murder. It's not second degree murder. It's intent to murder.
No, yeah. Meaning, just what it sounds like, that in the eyes of the law,
you had intent.
You intended to, you weren't going to take that person out dancing. You were intending to murder that individual.
In the eyes of the law. In
the eyes of the law, yeah.
Did you agree with those charges?
No.
At the time, or do you agree with them now?
I've always been the kind of guy, I don't mind taking my lumps, and I made my bed, I had to lie in it, but it seems to me, excuse me, that there is, and there is a lot of people in prison and in jail right now on charges that seem just outrageous for, the sentence, the number of years is completely outrageous for the act they committed. And I'm not trying to get into the whole politics of it, but I wasn't. I had some, when I was younger, some minor drug charges, possession of weed, whatnot. And, a few traffic tickets, and then here I am, facing 25 years to life, with no other strikes against me in the state of Michigan here.
The state of Michigan.
Yeah.
Well, there's not a 3-strike rule in Michigan.
I don't believe there is.
So were you ever in California?
Yep, I spent some time out in the Sunshine State there.
Well, we'll get back to that in a minute. Yeah. Well, you say that you believe that people are in prison for what would you call it? Overcharged by the justice system.
I just think some of it is outrageous. For real quick, for example, this the first thing that comes to mind is this the war on opiates, I guess, that is the big to-do in Michigan right now. And I just heard a newscast probably a couple weeks ago, and now they're and you guys probably know this. I'm usually behind the times on some of this stuff, but now if you get caught trafficking any opiates at all, and I'm not sure the amount, but I know it's not severe. I know it's not like kilos or pounds or anything like that. It can be a little prescription bottle that doesn't have your name on it. You can get like 5 to 10 years just for that. So if I hand you, say I have a prescription from the dentist for some Vicodin, and you're carrying it in your pocket for me, and we get pulled over, and my name's on that bottle, and you're obviously not me, the officer can arrest you, and from my understanding, can arrest you, and you could face some severe time for that.
You could.
I mean,
I think that the average everyday person who doesn't have criminal backgrounds and previous felonies or whatever maybe are probably more likely not likely to face that kind of outcome, right? But,
yeah.
So I mean, part of me is wondering if that's a sort of a psychological point of view, meaning hypersensitivity surrounding anything that's got to do with the law, right? Including something as simple as maybe having a Vicodin. If I were to get pulled over, and I'm not challenging the state with a Vicodin or something of that nature, it's not likely that I would do time for it. In all likelihood, whatever the laws are. But I mean, I think it's partly dependent maybe on your background, and your thought processes as well around the justice system, right?
Right. Yeah, I can. I mean, obviously, there's truth to that, but there's many different things, that go into the factors of one's background and the charge that you're facing. Like I was saying, I didn't have any other felonies. I had
at the time of the incident.
The stabbing in Michigan here,
which we'll get to shortly.
I didn't have any other felonies. It was all misdemeanors and small ones at that. But
misdemeanors out of the same state or out of other states?
Out of this state.
Out of this state.
Out of Michigan here.
Right.
But that year, 2000, was an election year. The judges were up for re-election and all that, appointed.
Well, they're elected,
yes. Yeah. So, there's times where they want to make examples out of people. And I was told that directly. I was directly told
by whom?
that.
By your attorneys?
By the prosecuting attorney. That chances are that I was going to be made an example of. It was April. It was early in the year. basically what I was told is they were coming out swinging, So
I don't doubt probably that politics plays a part. Timing plays a part. There's probably an infinite number of factors, right? But some are higher in, let's say, resolution than others. During an election period, potentially, right? I'll tell you why. Because a common theme, that I hear pretty regularly, from those who have been convicted of something is, I'd say 80% of the time, is that I was going to be, or I was told they're going to make an example out of me. Right? It's a fairly common theme across, people who are up for whatever they've done. So
right,
and I'm not sure I agree or disagree in your particular case. I'm sure you were more privy, obviously, at the time to the politics of the time, and certainly you were the one in the room. Let's get to the actual incident. So I kind of want to start with the incident itself, and then we can maybe backtrack a little bit and see what kind of led up to that. So my understanding is, and you're going to fill in the blanks for us here, that it was what seemed to be like a road rage incident gone bad. So tell me, when did this happen? Where were you? You were in a truck with some friends at the time. Again, you're how old at the time? Again,
I was about 27, 28.
27, 28. And you're in a truck with a couple other guys.
Well, actually, we were in a Jetta, and
that's not a truck.
No,
Volkswagen Jetta,
and it's and that actually plays a crucial part of the story that you're going to hear here. The fact that it was a Jetta,
Volkswagen,
yep, 4-door black Jetta.
All right.
There was 3 males, myself and 2 other males, and my one buddy's girlfriend.
So 4 people in the car in total.
Yeah.
And your vehicle.
Yeah. And a friend of mine's. I was riding shotgun. My buddy.
Not your vehicle, but the vehicle you were in.
Yeah.
4 people in total.
Yeah.
You had 2 buddies and a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And you're riding shotgun. So you're up in the front.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we were coming from. This was about 2:30 in the morning on a Saturday. And we were coming from another bar. We had just left a bar.
Drinking hours are over. 2 a.m. in Michigan.
2 a.m., yeah. And, but we were lucky enough. The bar that we were at, and I'm not going to name any names, but the bar we were at sold us a case of beer to go. Which, I don't know about other states, but in the state of Michigan, that's... From what I can recall, that's not legal.
We're kosher.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, they're letting you have alcohol after hours.
Right.
Okay. So you get a case of what is it, Budweiser or something?
High Life, the champagne.
All right. So there you go. So you get a 12-pack, 12-pack, 6-pack. What do you got?
Yeah, 24 bottles.
So you get a case.
Yep.
24 beers. So you take it out you're at a bar. You take it out into the Volkswagen. Everybody's having a good time. Probably, I don't know, are you guys already drunk or you just... I'm not speak for them. Maybe you don't know how they feel, but how about yourself?
Well, I was pretty drunk, and earlier in the evening, we were... well, myself, I can't say for anybody else, but myself, I was... partaking in a little bit of the cocaine. So
were you drunk, spinning drunk, or were you drunk, just being loud drunk, or you still had your faculties with you, as I call them, or
I still...
To what degree was the alcohol? I mean, obviously it's difficult to maybe differentiate between the alcohol and the cocaine, right? But
right.
How much was the alcohol taking effect?
I was
You're pretty lit.
I was pretty lit, but I still, I was able to maintain. I wouldn't say that I was able to drive if I had to, but
So what would you have blown if you did you have to blow into it?
No, not that night. Not that night.
So, but if you thought what you had to blow, what would you have blown? Point or 2.2?
Yeah, but definitely somewhere.
You're pretty good drunk at the time.
Yeah, I was fairly lit.
So back up a little bit. So you also were doing coke earlier in the evening.
Yes.
How much earlier?
I probably started at about midnight, and here it is.
A couple hours earlier.
Yeah, about 2.
What for? To take your buzz back up. I mean, meaning don't bring it. You wanted an upper, not a downer.
Yeah, I went. I wouldn't say that I. Really,
or had you been doing it regularly anyway?
I kind of, yeah, it's kind of a weekend thing,
right.
And
so you're out partying.
Yeah, and I always like to have a little bit of it when I'm drinking, so that I can maintain, because
What does it do for you? Does it balance things out?
It just it kind of kept me alert, kept me I wasn't stagger, stumble, fall down drunk. I was more or less, I could walk a line. I was able to hold my own if I needed to, or
even under the perceived 2.0.
Yeah, even after drinking 12 to 15 beers.
Right, so there you go. So you guys, so you leave the bar.
Mm-hmm.
They give you a 24-pack of bottles to go of Miller Lite champagne, whatever.
High Life.
High Life. Okay, there you go. And so you're getting your Jetta before you. You're riding shotgun. Who's driving?
A friend of mine, Eric.
So his car.
Yep.
Okay. And you got the other two are in the back, boyfriend, girlfriend.
Yep.
In the back. So you head off. What are the plans for the evening? The rest of the evening, I should say.
At that point, my buddy's girlfriend, who was in the back seat, Danielle, her folks were out of town. So we were going to go back to her house. And
how far away?
At this point, we were in... we were up on... I think we were in Madison Heights. And we were making our way over to Sterling Heights.
All right, so you had a fair way to go. So those who aren't familiar with Michigan, that would be about a 30-minute ride.
Yeah,
maybe not 2 in the morning, but it's a fair distance.
It's a white knuckle, definitely at that time in the morning, because with the police and everything.
Right. So were you taking the freeway or the streets over?
No, we were actually shooting up Van Dyke. At this point,
up Van Dyke,
yeah,
to get up to Sterling Heights. So Van Dyke is again, for those who don't know, it's a road, not the freeway. So there's plenty of lights on the way up there.
Right.
So it's a good 30+ minutes to get up there. That's where you're headed.
Right.
That was the plan, to go continue at her place.
Right.
So you're driving along.
Yeah. So we're driving along, and there is no other cars on the road but us. And all of a sudden, behind us, there is headlights. Another car coming up behind us. And we roll up to a red light, and this car pulls up next to us. Mm-hmm. And in this car, they're on the left of us.
All right, so they were behind you at one point. They pulled up to the left, and now you're at the light, and they're sitting next to you.
Yep. There's 4 guys in that car.
Okay.
And nothing was said at that point. A few dirty looks were traded, You
guys got windows open?
Your windows cracked. At this time it was...
On your car or their car?
Everybody. In our car, the windows were cracked down,
Having a smoke, whatever.
Yeah, not even halfway, but... Again, this is in April, so it's kind of cool at night. To 2 in the morning, we get down to 50.
Yeah.
So the windows are cracked. So the light changes, and we take off.
So, but let's back up a second. So they pull up next to you and they exchange a few looks with you. Is it, just hey, how you doing, or what's up, guys, or hey, who the hell are you? I mean, what kind of vibe did you get off of that?
From I can't say
well, you're
for,
on the passenger
for Eric,
side.
yeah, and I don't think Danielle did, but she's in the back. But I myself,
she's behind you.
Yeah.
Right, so Eric and the boyfriend, if let's call him, is they're on the side of the drivers in the other vehicle.
Yeah, Jason's behind the driver.
Okay. All right.
I know him and I were both feeling good, so. The looks that we were throwing, these guys were, the tough guy look, I think.
You guys were throwing those looks, or they were throwing them?
They both cars were throwing
All
them.
right,
We
so
were
a little bit
throwing.
of man banter. If
Yeah,
you will. Right.
yeah, a little.
No particular reason, though.
Yeah.
Or was it
muscle flexing?
Why? Because they were up on you.
Just when they first pulled up, they. As they pulled up, all four of them, all sets of eyes were just, it was a dead stare, and, it was one of those stares when someone's staring at you, they're staring at you long enough, they could have said hi at some point or said something, and nothing was said, so,
All right, so you pull away.
So we pull away.
Who are you guys side by side? Are you moving at the same speed, or are you racing, or what?
No, they're behind us again.
They get back behind you.
Yeah. Well, no, not back behind us. They stayed in their lane,
Okay.
but we were ahead of them in our lane.
There's a difference, I think. Getting back behind you is a gesture.
Yeah.
Of we're back on you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, but they stayed. In this case, they stayed in their lane.
Yeah. So we all roll up to the next light, which is red, and we stop.
Here we go again.
And here we go again. Now, at this point, Danielle, who's in the back seat behind me,
right.
She made a comment to them, and it wasn't a rude comment. It was just what she said was, she said, hey, where's the party at? What are you guys up to? Kind of like she was just trying to break the ice. She could sense the tension in our car.
Too many guys.
Yeah, too much testosterone going
on. You guys,
on.
Are you all in your 20s at the time?
Yeah.
So she's in she's in the passenger side in the back. Mm-hmm. So she has to what? She has to yell this over.
Yeah, she has to lean over.
The window's got to be down in the back in order for them to hear this, right?
Yeah.
So she yells it over to the other vehicle. I assume that their windows are down.
Yeah.
And enough capacity to be able
to hear.
All right. She says, where's the party at? Something to that effect.
Yeah.
Trying to break up there.
Not being rude, not being disrespectful, just trying to break the ice. So
how do they respond?
Their response was something to the, and I can't remember exactly word for word, but their response was something to the effect of, well, wherever you're at is where the party's going to be.
So far it's friendly.
Yeah,
so
but
their response is in kind of sorts.
No, their response. No, to say that to the way I kind of took that was like, that they were like, well, wherever you're going to be is where the party's going to be. Saying that directly to her. Not
so you guys took as an offense to the female in the vehicle.
I did.
Okay.
So I don't know about the other guys, but I kind of did.
So that's the way you saw it.
Yeah, I kind of saw
it. Indication that your friends, the other guy friends, took it that way as well. I mean, and they were talking to her directly over you. So here come the animal instincts, right?
Right. Yeah. So the feathers are starting to get ruffled from where I'm
Their
sitting.
hair's standing up. A little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
So
the light turns.
The light turns again.
All right.
And we go. So they stay in their lane, and we're in our lane. and they're lagging a little bit, you know.
Three quarters behind. They're in a pit move stance.
Yeah. So, excuse me. So, we roll up to the next light, you know, and anybody that's been on Van Dyke knows there's light after light after light.
Especially at 2 in the morning.
Yeah,
right?
the way it is.
If you're caught in it, there's no smart lights out there.
Right.
So you keep getting caught at lights.
So this time we roll up to the light.
Light number 3.
Light number 3. The guy in the front seat of their car, passenger side,
right,
says, he says that they want to bang this girl while the rest of us watch. But they used more derogatory terms than that. You know, different, you know, truck driver words, I guess. Right. So that, I know my buddy Jason was heated after he heard that. Because his girlfriend.
That's his girlfriend.
Yeah. So, and naturally I was drunk, coked up.
Naturally.
So, not, I don't mean it like that, but.
You were.
You know, I was drunk and coked up, so naturally that kind of got my motor going a little bit.
Even more.
You know, yeah.
When you're going between these lights, is there banter between even you and your guys in your car saying, look, they keep following us, they're not... Like, can you believe what they said? Is there any talk and discussion between you guys, or is Danielle trying to calm things down?
No, she wasn't really trying to calm anything down, and I'm sure there was, you know, little talk going on, but
nothing heavy,
nothing that really stuck out, nothing that seemed, you know, important at that point.
Until you hit light numbers. But you got your feathers ruffled on light number 2 with the, the comment that you didn't take. Whichever way you took it doesn't make a difference, right? Emotionally, that's how you took it. So you're at light number 3. Now they're stepping it up again.
Right. So the light changes again, and we go.
This is after... They said, we want to do whatever to her.
Yeah, you know,
So Eric gets a little riled. I'm sorry, is that Eric in the back?
Jason
gets a little riled up in the back. Yeah. Is he yelling back at them at light 3?
Yeah, he was hollering something at them, you know, kind of F-bombing them. And, you know,
guys, whatever.
Yeah, and, you know, some of that was coming from their car.
Right.
So then we proceeded to go. The light changed, and Eric drove. But that case of beer was on the back seat between Jason and Danielle.
Mm-hmm.
Full bottles of beer. Not a bottle had been cracked yet, because we were waiting until we got to her house.
Mm-hmm. So
Jason grabs a bottle of beer and throws one out. He kind of sticks his arm out the window because they're behind us, not directly behind us, but they're laying next to us.
This is while you're traveling.
This is while we're driving.
Between the lights.
And he throws, you know, he's got a bottle in his left hand, and he kind of lobs it up in the air to try and hit their car.
They're still in the opposite lane.
They're still in the opposite lane. And I told him, I said, hand me a couple bottles. And so he did. And I rolled the window down all the way and leaned my body out of the car. So I'm sitting on the door. The window's down, but I'm sitting on the door. You know, kind of Dukes of Hazzard style when they would get in the car. So my arms are on the roof of the car, basically. And I got a full bottle in each hand. And so I'm leaning over the car and throwing these 2 bottles at their car. And at this point, one of the 2, I don't recall which one of the 2 hit the hood of their car and busted glass everywhere. And so I slide back into the car.
What made you ask for the bottles in the first place, to be an active participant in this now heightening.
Well, yes. Jason went ahead and lobbed one, and my drunken haze, that seemed like a good idea. So I figured,
throw me a couple.
Give me a couple, and I can probably take a better shot than you can, than he could, because he's trying to lob them behind him, and I could get a good throw from the advantage point that I was at. But so I slide back in the car, and then we're approaching another red light, so we're starting to slow down now.
They're still in the opposite lane.
They're still in the opposite lane. Well, they must have had bottles in their car too, because the passenger of their car threw a bottle and it hit the back window of this Jetta and shattered the window. Glass came flying into the car, all over everybody. And at this point, Eric locked it up, hit the brakes, because this is his car. Now, Eric was never really a fighter. He was never really, if we were in a bar and things were starting to go down, he would make his way to the other end of the bar. But he was a good guy. He was,
He wasn't confrontational.
No, not at all. But he used to hang out with us. He was a good friend. He was loyal, so... But he was just, everybody's got friends like that, or a friend like that just doesn't have the desire to get involved in
Engage
that stuff.
in that kind of way. Right.
So they busted out the window. And at this point, Eric had stopped. Their car came to a complete stop.
Now you're side by side again.
Yeah, and everybody's starting to file out of the cars. Everybody's getting out.
Everybody. What about Danielle?
Yep, Danielle got out of the car, 2 bottles in her hand.
So she's not there to say that's enough, everybody. She's there to say let's do this.
No, yeah, she was at that moment. She was one of the guys at that moment. So
what do you think she took more offense to, the comments that had been made earlier, or do you think it was a build up? Now they're throwing bottles. Well, respectfully, you throw them bottles first, but now they're throwing them back, right?
Well, yeah, but they had made this comment about basically wanting to rape her, before the bottles got thrown. So. And I knew Danielle. And
what was the language at the time that, let's call it monstrous, meaning there's one, I'm not trying to differentiate, I'm trying to pick into it just a little bit, and that is, it's one thing to say to somebody, and I'm not justifying either one, by the way. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to say, I want to, F your girl, and there's another one to say, I want to rape your girl. Was it, because either way they're bad. Mm-hmm. Right, and unwanted behaviors, right? But one suggests something much more sinister, I would say, than the other. Right. Do you think it was more on that end of the spectrum, the comments that they made, or was it sort of, again, I'm not trying to demean or bring down the language, but I'm trying to figure out how harsh their language was.
I think when they said what they said, my impression was they just wanted to say the most vile,
the rudest
disgusting thing they could say to a woman, and see what reaction, the guys were going to give that were, friends with that girl. That was, my impression of it at the time.
So give or take, you're at about light number 5 at this point.
Yeah.
With all, it's sort of synonymous, meaning that every light that goes by, things seem to escalate.
Yeah.
Right.
And when we locked them up and everybody jumped out of the car.
You guys all jumped out, or they jumped out as well?
They jumped out as well. The only 2 people.
Somebody had to instigate getting out.
Well,
generally it's not. Well, I don't know for a fact. Maybe you all got out.
When we stopped, I don't know how soon the other carload emptied. But when we stopped, we jumped out of the car, not so much with the intent to go ahead and knuckle up right away. We were all covered with glass, from the back window. You know, I had, and it's early spring. It's April, early spring, so I'm still wearing jackets. You know, I had glass go down the collar of my jacket, and so when I jumped out, I was, kind of shaking my jacket to get the glass out. And the only two people that stayed with the cars, funny enough, were the two drivers of each car.
So Eric stayed in the car because he's your non-confrontational one, and the other
car, the driver of the other car. So when I got out in the passenger side of the car because that's the side I was sitting on. Jason and Danielle both got out of the driver's side, the rear driver's side of the car, which was the same side
that they're on,
that car was on. So I think when they saw that, they didn't know what we were doing. I think they thought we were, coming, getting out of the car to charge them, which in a matter of seconds, it went from shaking the glass out of my jacket to that's exactly what happened.
Did you guys even know why you were getting out of the car?
Well, I mean, I knew, because I had
what were you
glass.
Getting out of the, okay.
I had glass in my jacket, and that's initially what I was getting out of the car for, but also to check the window, and it was kind of like an oh shit moment.
How you feeling at the moment? When you're getting out, when you're opening the car door, you're hot at this point, I would imagine.
Yeah, but amazingly, instantly sober, because my adrenaline's flowing at this point, and so I just felt totally sober for a few minutes there while this took place. And when we stopped, we actually stopped. It was right at 12 Mile and Van Dyke, right there at that light, at that This is where it all went down.
So you'd come from, give or take, or just you'd come from about 8 Mile, 9 Mile.
Yeah, we'd come up up Van Dyke.
I'm counting the number of lights. So you'd come up about 2-3 miles.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you're getting out of the vehicle, you're a little bit hot, and you want to get the glass off you, Danielle, and is it Chris?
Jason.
I'll get him right one of these days. There is no Chris in this story.
Chris is in another story.
Eric and Jason. So, and they pop out of the other side.
Mm-hmm.
You shake the glass off, or you go around the front, you go around the back of the vehicle. They're getting out of their cars.
Made my way around the back. Now, as I'm making my way around the back, I see well, let me back up just for a second.
Yeah.
When we were doing the whole stopping and going, the guy in their car, myself, and the guy in the back seat on the passenger side, me and that guy were kind of, eyeing each other, sizing each other up through the whole stop and go part of it. Once the rude comment was made.
Which guy is this in their vehicle?
He's in the back seat.
Back seat.
Behind the passenger.
Gotcha.
Okay. So me and this guy are kind of, we'd been kind of locking eyes through the whole stop and go thing. So back to it here. When I got out and I'm rounding behind the car, the back side of the car, this guy had gotten out of the car and he's charging at me at this point. And the car's at this point, because once the window got busted and Eric locked it up, we stopped. they had locked it up as well. And I think they kind of were like, oh, what, oh no, what did we do type of thing. So they had locked it up. And at this point, the cars were a good 10 feet apart. So
they're behind you.
Yeah, they're kind of kitty corner behind us, still in the lane to the left of us. So as I'm coming around the car, this guy is coming at me, or he's coming charging, and he had something in his hand. I couldn't tell what it was at that point. I couldn't.
So without, I don't want to hear names, even if you know them. So give us a picture of what his stature comparatively to you. You're how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot.
Okay, and you were at the time as well.
Yeah,
give or take. And
yeah.
You're running about what, 180 to 190 pounds. What about then?
Back then I was probably about 100 and maybe 60.
An average 20-year-old.
Yeah.
So what does this guy look like?
This guy is probably about 5'10", and he had a good 20 pounds on me.
Stocky.
Yeah.
Not too stocky, but
yeah.
Did you see him as stocky?
He kind of looked like maybe he played football.
5'10", 180.
It's kind of what I, seeing him in.
What was your initial perception of his age? I mean, when you're in a situation like that, right? You have a moment to size things up, and you're saying to yourself, it's again, you go back to primitive behaviors, and you're just thinking of, okay, this guy's coming at me, but a billion things are going through your head, whether you want him to or not. Right? Is this guy going to crush me? Can I take him? Whatever it may be. Are you nervous about it? Are you thinking this guy looks like a football player? That's not going through your head yet, or that's only in hindsight. If he's charging at you, obviously this is, I'm assuming, happening within, 2-3 seconds, 3-4 seconds. Right?
Yeah, and, and there was no hesitation from his part. But, of course, I mean, yeah, of course, it was all going through my head. I was nervous, I was scared, I was hesitant, I mean, I'm not by any means any kind of Billy Badass guy, but, in high school and, boys are boys, whatever, I've been in a number of fights, but I don't think there's ever been, I've never been in a fight where I haven't been scared.
It's a natural. People act like they're not, but it's a natural thing to be afraid.
Yeah.
Even the professional fighters agree that they're afraid.
Right.
They're nervous.
Right.
Most of them. Okay. So this is all visually. You're at the back of your vehicle. Windows broken out. Danielle and
Jason
have already exited the vehicle.
Right.
So Eric's in the car. The driver of the other vehicle staying in the vehicle. But so 3 guys are getting out of their car. They have 4 as well.
Yep.
Right, so 3 guys are getting out. One of which is charging at you in the back.
Right.
So what are before we get to what happens? What are Danielle and Jason doing? Talking to the other 2 that came out, or
no? Jason is fighting with one of the guys.
Literally or verbally?
No,
physically,
like they're going at it. Fists are flying, and
you see this.
Yeah, I kind of took my eyes off of the raging bull that was coming at me and kind of looked over, took a quick glance and saw Jason, like Jason and this other guy, they were both just throwing haymakers at each other. I don't even know if they were landing anything, but it's like they were windmilling each other. It's crazy.
Most people can't fight properly, but
no.
So they're windmilling at each other.
It's actually funny to watch people fight.
Yeah. Well, who are not skilled. Yeah.
Right.
So you're in your periphery. It catches your eye for a tick. I mean, you don't have time to pay attention to what Jason is doing with this guy because you got some bull coming at you.
Right.
Danielle, what is she doing? Screaming and yelling, or is she in the fray too?
She's screaming and yelling, and she wasn't throwing punches from what I saw, but she was right in this other guy's face. And
the third guy.
Yeah.
The third person that's out of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you got 6 people out of the vehicle in total. 3 on your end and 3 on their end. The drivers are keeping their heads on straight for the moment.
Right.
All right. So you're at the back, and you got this what you call a bull coming at you.
Right. Yeah.
You're sizing them up. I imagine. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the point being is that the number of things that go through your head at that moment, from fear to anxiety to nervousness to fight or flight type of scenarios, go through your head, and you have to determine. You have to make a decision at some point.
Right.
One is to run. That's not what you did. So what happens next?
Yeah, it's funny because it's almost like a car accident. You know, you got all the time in the world, but no time at all. You know,
it's a fair analogy.
But so this guy's charging at me, and from the street lights, I could see something glisten in his hand. You know, as he's running. You know, naturally his hands are moving, and I could see something reflective kind of glisten in his hand. And the only thing, at first I thought, well, it's a beer bottle. But then for a split second, you know, so let me think. So I was 27, 28 at this time. I had been carrying a knife on me religiously for probably maybe since I was 17, you know.
Why?
Just had it, just carried it. Different ones. Some people are into guns. Some people are into, you know, I've always had different knives, you know, from butterfly knives to.
So would you consider yourself? I mean, at the time, so there's a reasoning that, I mean, we're going to get into it one way or the other about why you even have a knife in the first place, right? But at the time, did you consider yourself to be a collector, a hunter? I mean, if you're getting it at 17, it's just a cool thing to do, to have one.
I think that's kind of what it started out with, it was just kind of like, you know, hey, look what I got type of thing, you know, or, you know, and kind of like the, you know, I'm carrying this, you know, weapon, and, you know, I just walked past a police officer and I've gotten away with it, you know, type of thing, kind of mindset, you know.
So there's a little bit of a thrill.
In some way, I think that's kind of where it started.
Knowing that you're doing something, it's not you. I'm saying that people sometimes take things, you know, will get a rush, if you will, off of knowing they're doing something illegal and, you know, passing a police officer and having a knife with them.
Right.
As a starting point, right? So, nonetheless, you have it on you. Where is it? In your pants? In your sock?
No, I carried it in my back pocket.
Consistently?
Yeah.
What kind of knife is it? I mean, how big is this knife?
At this time, this knife was...
So it was one of many that you had?
Yeah, this knife was just, it was a little pocket knife. It was a 4-inch blade, folding, locking knife. Completely legal. You know,
but it's not a Swiss Army knife.
No, it wasn't. No, Swiss Army
with
knife.
A pair of scissors on with it.
Right. So, right. I did carry one of those for a while, though.
Did you choose that knife that night? Or you?
No.
I mean, you just picked up whatever. Or was
No,
in your
yeah,
pants or
it
what?
was just, I believe it was just in, I had a favorite pair of pants that I, wore all the time. And, when I got home, to go to bed or jump in the shower, I took them off. I just left my wallet, my keys, and my knife in there. And then when I put them back on the next day.
Just like anything else, you put it in there like it was one of your accessories.
Yeah.
So you had it on you with no thoughts or intentions of certainly going out and committing a crime. So
Right.
So let's get back to the scene.
So, yeah. So
he's coming at you.
He's coming at me, and I'm thinking, maybe it's a beer bottle, but then I'm also thinking, well, hell, I'm carrying a knife. Maybe he's got a knife. So at that point, I pulled my knife out. This is while while I'm in mid-run.
Well, he's in mid-run.
Both of us
You're
at this point.
What are you charging bulls at each other? Or?
We're, mind you, we're a good 10, 12 feet apart. So, figure maybe 3, maybe 4 steps, and we're,
This is all taking place over the matter of how many seconds? Ballpark.
Geez. Not even, maybe 2 seconds, for us to reach each other.
So you get out, you say you see a flash of what you think could potentially be a knife. It may have been a piece of glass, it could have been a beer bottle, it could have been anything, but your perception at the time was that it was a knife.
Right.
In hindsight, and we'll get to whether it really was or not, is that a perception that because you're a knife carrier that is sort of built into you, that one, particularly in a confrontational capacity, that one would have a knife, and therefore you have one, and therefore other people would have one.
Right, yeah. That was my final thought.
So it all takes place very quickly.
Yeah, was that, I'm carrying one, so it's logical that he could be too.
So in that couple seconds, as you stated, you pull out your knife.
Yeah.
While you're charging each other.
So
you're not in flight mode.
No.
You're in go mode.
Yeah.
And does he see you do it?
No.
Pull it out behind you.
Yeah, I found out later on as we get into it, he had no idea that I had a knife in my hand at the time.
I'm saying you pulled it out of your pocket, your back pocket.
Pulled it out of my back pocket and flipped it open.
So it didn't have a locking mechanism on it.
Once it was flipped open, it
locked.
locked.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And he didn't know you had that.
No.
How could he not see you pull it out? Were you hiding it behind your back?
I just as we were running, as I'm running, I pulled it out of my. I probably had my hand in my pocket and pulling it before I started to stride, and then snapped it open, and then once I snapped it open, we were locked up at that point.
He doesn't see any of this.
But he didn't see it, no. Because
you're already on to each other.
Yeah, and what happened was, whatever he had it in his left hand, and he swung at me.
Which hand is the knife in yours?
Mine is in the right. I got mine in my right hand.
So you guys have on the same side weapons.
And just different hands.
No, if he's left and you're right, you're opposite each other. You both got weapons on the same side.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So what happens?
So he throws his left hand with whatever he had in it up at me. And I ducked. Like, as I was running at him and he's running at me, he throws his hand up and I ducked and kind of put my left shoulder into his midsection, and his arm went across my back. So his left arm is up on my back.
Mm-hmm.
And
He missed.
He missed, yeah. But he left his left side completely wide open.
So he's in this type of position.
He's vulnerable at this
right?
point.
This whole part of his body.
Yeah.
This whole part of his body is wide open.
Right.
You're in a take you down mode because you're underneath him a bit.
Yeah.
And you've got your knife in your right hand.
My right hand, which is facing his
left side.
His left side, which is completely wide open. So at that point,
when he took a swing at you with that, did you actually see this piece of whatever it was again, or you just assumed it was in that hand?
No, the only time I saw it was when he was first running at me, and from the street lights, something glistened, off of his hand.
But as he was swinging at you, you didn't see it again. So you got to make the assumption that he.
Yeah.
I would imagine that he's got something, and he's taking a swing at you.
Right.
So he misses. His arm is on your back.
Yeah.
It's all again happening extremely quickly.
Yeah.
Imagine. So you've got your knife in your right hand. His left side is available.
Yeah.
What do you do?
And so at that point, without hesitation, I stuck him twice, real quick. It was just like jab, jab.
Did you launch twice? I mean, did you start from afar? Meaning, did you from back here and really lunge one into him, or were you close up and you kind of poked him a few times?
No, the first one was from way back, and I swung it into his side, and then I pulled it out, and then it was just so it was one long swing, and then once it went in, I pulled it out and just quickly stuck it back in his side again.
Same place?
Yeah.
Not the exact same place?
No.
But on the left side?
On his left side, yeah.
This is a 4-inch blade.
Yeah.
Where did you think you hit him? In the ribs?
Yeah, I figured, I wasn't aiming for anything. I was
You'd have to be pretty skilled to be doing that. But were you thinking about any of that at the time? Meaning, everybody has a general idea where the heart is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you thinking that's what you're going for? Or you're just hitting them wherever?
No, I was just hitting him where he was vulnerable, and I was thinking because, and again, like you said, this is all happening real quick. I was thinking because I saw something in his hand. He came at me with what I'm perceiving to be a dangerous weapon. Is going to be me or him.
That's your thought.
That was my thought. Yeah, my thought was I'm going to make it home to see my mom tonight. That was what I was thinking at the time, drunk and all coked up.
Yeah, I was just about to say, even though you may have sobered quickly, and I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling in terms of being, on something, and then suddenly you're in a realistic situation that's superseding the drugs and alcohol, and suddenly being quite aware of what you're doing, seemingly quite aware, albeit the alcohol and the cocaine are still in your system, still running through your brain, helping you make decisions, whether you like it or not.
Right.
So when you stab him the first time, that's a pretty good wind up.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you say? If you're winding up, so you got the whole thing in there.
Yeah,
all 4 inches of that knife went in.
Well, that's what I thought.
That's what you thought.
Yeah, that was my intention, and that's what I thought until things were over. But
let's just talk about what you know at the time, not
Right.
what you figure out later.
Right.
So you put it in, and you feel you got him pretty good,
Right.
and then you do it, you go for it again. What's his reaction?
Well, when I hit him the second time, I mean, he didn't jump, he didn't flinch, he didn't.
What did he do the first time?
Nothing. It was like he didn't even notice, didn't even realize he had been stabbed. And then,
What do you think that was, in your opinion? Adrenaline, shock?
probably a mix between adrenaline, booze.
We're not professionals, right? So let's
Right.
not say what it exactly was, and we can't speak for this gentleman, but
Right.
all you know is he's not reacting to this.
No, it was like he didn't even realize that it happened. And after
Scare you?
well, I didn't have enough time to even think about that, to be honest, because after the second time that I had stuck him, and mind you, while all this is going on, even though it's 2:30 in the morning, there were several cars that had stopped, and people had. I mean, this is right at the intersection at 12 and Van Dyke. There were people that had gotten out of their cars. I remember one in particular because when I was walking back to the car, it was a minivan, and it was a family coming home from somewhere late because the husband was standing outside the minivan, and it was one of those minivans that didn't have the tint on the rear windows. And as I'm walking back to the car, I can see two little kids in the back of this minivan with their faces pressed against the glass, and the wife in the passenger seat, and there were a few other people outside of their cars. But so the second time that I had stuck him, the driver of their car said, "Come on, the cops are going to be coming." He hollered it to like everybody that was fighting. He's like, "We got to go," probably, rounding up his crew, but we had heard the announcement. So at that point, that's when this guy and I broke away, and that's when he saw the knife in my hand.
So how much time was there after you stabbed him the second time and the fight, let's say, stopped? I mean, did you continue to fight, or did sort of the stabbing occurred and then it was over? This guy yells and says, "Let's get out of here."
Yeah, once I stabbed him the second time, that's like right away like that. That's when his buddy was like, "The cops are coming."
Plus, now you have an audience.
Yeah, and we broke away just as quick as we locked up. We broke away, and I was stepping backwards away from him. I still had the knife in my hand, and it was down at my side, but I wasn't concealing it. It was just, my arm was hanging. And he saw the knife. That's when he saw the knife.
Did he react to that at all?
At that point, he said to me, "Oh, what?" He said, how can I say this? He said,
I mean, just say it explicitly if that's what he said.
He said, "What, you're a pussy, you need a knife?" And he said, "What are you going to do with that?"
Does he not realize he's already stabbed?
He didn't realize, yeah. And so...
Was there blood on the knife?
Yeah.
But he couldn't tell, maybe.
Well,
it's nighttime.
And that's when I said to him, I said, "Check your side. I already got you twice, bitch." And he put his hand at his side and pulled his hand up, and there was blood all over his hand. And at that moment, he started to stagger as he was walking backwards, like his knees started to buckle, like the shock instantly set in on him. and his one buddy kind of came over and cradled him and ushered him back to their car.
So it's not till after he realizes he stabbed that maybe he actually has a sense of what's the severity, maybe, of what's going on.
Right.
You had to tell him.
Right, yeah.
That he'd been stabbed. And once he realized that to understand correctly, he's backing away from, he's at the back of his vehicle. Is that correct?
Correct,
right?
yeah.
And he's sort of stumbling backwards.
Mm-hmm.
He's got blood all over his hands.
Correct, yeah.
A lot.
Enough to cover, I could see it, and I was a good 8 feet away from him at this point, and I could see it on his hand.
What color shirt was he wearing?
He'd had a...
Excuse me for just a second. Go on. We good? You had...
He had like a... I believe he had a white shirt on.
Well, that would have amplified things.
But he had a jacket over it.
I see.
So he had a black, I don't know if it was leather or what, but he had a white button-down shirt on. And then he had a black shirt over top of it. Or a black jacket over top of it, excuse me.
How did you... So the incident, for all intents and purposes, is over. You have an audience of cars collecting behind you, including families with children with their faces painted to the window.
Yeah.
Because something extraordinary is happening that is rarely seen by the public, right?
Right.
Maybe heard about, but rarely seen.
Right.
Everybody in each vehicle, to my understanding, is sort of now on warning from the driver in the first vehicle that the cops are going to be coming. Let's go. Right, because
Correct.
The two drivers aren't confrontational. Regardless of whether that was true or not, somebody notices that people are collecting behind you, license plates and all.
Right.
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 So what are you thinking at the moment? After you said this to him, I don't want to. If you want to quote again, that would be good. Because you said something to him. Look, I already got you, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
What did you say?
I told him that I already got you. I already got you twice, and I said, "Check your side, bitch."
How'd you feel about that at the moment? Not now, but at that time.
At that time, I felt like I had huge balls, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but I felt for a few moments there, I felt justified in what I did, because moments earlier, this guy, I don't know if it came out of his mouth, but he was part of the group that had made mention how they wanted to rape my friend, while the rest of us watched, and I don't know anybody, and I don't know, I'm just chalking it up to them just running their mouths and being stupid, but I don't know anybody that would, stand by and watch something like that. So, if you want to, if I want to delve deeper into it, what were his intentions of saying that? Because who in their right mind would idly sit by and watch something like that unless they were, themselves injured or hurt or couldn't react in any way.
Right.
But I felt justified in doing what I did.
At that time.
At that time. Yeah.
So he realizes now that he's stabbed. He's stumbling back to the vehicle. The driver in the vehicle is kind of helping him back in. Mm-hmm. And you all jump in your cars and take off.
Yeah. We get in the car, and it's not your typical after the game type of hooting and hollering, and after the concert had a few beers and you're all with your buddies like, yeah, all right. I mean, it was silent in that car.
Did your friends know that you stabbed them?
Yeah, they did.
They saw it, or you told them?
Eric saw it.
The driver of the vehicle.
Yeah,
Right.
but Jason and Danielle heard me say what I said to him. So, and also at this point, my like I'd said, I thought I had put the whole blade into his side. There was, I had the way I was holding the blade, because it was all happened so quick and it was in a frantic moment. I had the blade turned around so the sharp edge was facing me, and when I was holding the knife, I had my thumb pressed against the sharp part of the blade. Mm-hmm. So about a good half inch of the blade down by the base of the handle was pressed into my thumb. So only about 3.5 inches, out of the 4 inches of the knife actually, penetrated into his side.
When you before we get to the aftermath, when you're besides a sense of, and again, I don't want to correct me with the words, okay. Besides a sense of satisfaction, like you said, I got balls or whatever, right?
Right.
When you're actually stabbing him, what's going through? I mean, you feel it. Meaning it's an intimate thing to do. I don't mean that now.
Right. No,
What I mean is there's a big difference between shooting somebody from a distance and actually holding on to a knife and actually putting it into their body.
Right.
What are you thinking at that moment? What am I doing? Or is this so instantaneous? Or you tell me?
No, I mean, I wasn't. Up to this point, I had never stabbed anybody before. Never.
So this is a first stabbing.
Yeah.
What were you thinking? I mean, how does that feel to put something in somebody like that?
It was. I was definitely. As crazy as it sounds, battling myself in my head with kind of like, Dave, what the hell are you doing? To, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this, and I know it was like, just a couple milliseconds, but it seemed like I was having several conversations going on in my head with the, with the, what the hell am I doing?
The angel and the devil's on your shoulders, or
type of thing. Yeah.
Combative.
Yeah. And, when we got back in the car, like I said, it was completely silent, and, I couldn't believe what I'd done at that moment. I mean, again, I was instantly sober,
Still sober.
Yeah.
And so it's silence, literally, or did somebody eventually call you out on it and say, what'd you do?
No, when we got back to Danielle's, because that's where we were going, we talked about it for a few minutes, but nobody was like, oh my God, what did you do? Or why did you do that? Or, you know how much trouble we're going to get in and all. It wasn't like that at all. But it wasn't high fives and attaboy either. It wasn't, I guess it just really wasn't addressed too much. It was, if Eric, Jason, and Danielle in their minds were thinking, oh my God, I can't believe he just did that, they didn't say anything to me about it. I didn't know about it.
So if I'm Eric or I'm you, well, probably less Jason and Danielle, but if I'm Eric or I'm you, and I know, not because you had an audience at that point. I mean, play numbers, the whole thing.
Right.
And you knew that too.
Right.
I'd be thinking somebody's going to show up at the door shortly. It's not going to be difficult to find us.
Right.
You're not at Eric's house. You're at Danielle's house, so maybe slightly more difficult, but all things told, not very difficult to find you.
Right.
And so you're sitting at the house. Do you go back to having a few beers? Do you go back to...
Yeah, actually, the four of us did. We drank some more and we just carried on about our evening or the rest of our night without speaking about the incident that just took place.
Why? You want to do exactly... Is there a sense of... From your angle, because you're the one I'm talking to, right? Mm-hmm. Was there a sense of maybe let's not talk about this and we can kind of act like it didn't happen? Because it's got to be running through your head.
Yeah, there was a bit of that going on in my head
because you don't want to address it.
Yeah, kind of like if I sweep it under the rug, it'll just disappear type. But at the same time, I knew that there was going to be some trouble come of this, but I didn't know the severity of it at that time.
Why do you think you were too young?
Ignorance about I didn't know. I actually didn't know how much damage had been done internally at that point.
But let's back away from that, right? Because I know that there's a little bit to tell around the severity of what happened internally
right.
to his internals, if you will. Right. But one way or another, you got to be thinking, look, I just stabbed somebody, twice. I mean, that's the reality, and anybody. Who would know right from wrong would know that that's not right. And you knew, I correct me if I'm wrong. I suspect you knew that.
Yeah.
So something's coming. Granted, you may be ignorant to the to the law, meaning the severity of the punishment that would come along with what charges would come. Put all that aside for a second, right? And forget about what charges might come with it. At the end of the day, it's not. It's not good to stab people. You already know that,
right?
So forget about, what kind of trouble you may or may not get into. You did something that you shouldn't have done, regardless of whether they're throwing bottles or not, right?
Right.
You're sitting there during the rest of that evening because you continued partying on what seems to be a bit watered down version, but nonetheless, nobody's really talking about it. Everybody goes back to drinking beer. I would imagine that there's some sense of let's act, as you said, sweep it under the rug like it didn't happen. But at the end of the day, regardless of what the charges are going to be, you stab somebody, and that's not a good thing.
Right.
The sun comes up. Things change when the sun comes up.
Oh, yeah.
So now what happens?
Yeah, Jason was staying at Danielle's folks' house with her. And at this point, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. early Sunday morning. You know, people are getting ready to go to church. And I asked Eric, I said, Eric, can you take me back to my truck so I can go home? I mean, you know, even though it wasn't talked about between the four of us, I mean, my whole night, you know, was completely ruined after that, because I had that impending sense of, you know, it's just around the corner, you know, and I'm gonna, you know,
this isn't gonna go away.
Yeah, you know, there's, you know, it's like the first time you were in the principal's office in elementary school or junior high. You know, you know, the shit's hit the fan, and you know, there's nothing you can do, you know, but you know, you don't know how much trouble you're gonna be in.
Where's your truck parked? Back in Madison Heights at the bar?
No, it's at a Jason was a barber. It was at his barber shop at it was just down the road, like a couple miles down the road from Danielle's house.
Okay, so you left it there for the night. You guys all took one vehicle. You got the Volkswagen Jetta. Right?
Yeah,
You're out in that vehicle. Is Eric saying anything to Eric? You asked Eric to take you back to your truck. Is he saying anything to you? He's the non-confrontationalist, if you will. Right? Is he saying?
Yeah, no. When Eric and I were driving back to my truck, him and I had a conversation about what we talked about was about his window.
That's what you talked about, the window?
Yeah, because...
Not the stabbing?
No, no, only because I knew that if nobody got the license plate of the car...
Of the Volkswagen.
While the street brawl was going down, the only other way that there'd be any connection would be from that rear window, you know. And so I told Eric, I said, and I remember...
Are you driving the Volkswagen to go get your truck?
No, he's driving.
No, I mean, not you driving. Is that the vehicle that's being employed?
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Right. So you got a broken back window, which is evidence of something, and the police are probably looking for a Volkswagen with a broken back window.
Well, yeah. Well, what had happened was, because again, this is 2000, so not everybody had a cell phone in their pocket at the time, you know. Landlines were still pretty popular. God, what is it? Anyways,
flip phones.
No, I can't even think of the damn name of them now. They're so obsolete. Where you put the quarters in and you make the phone call.
Phone booth.
Phone booth. Thank you.
There
Yeah.
You go.
God. Anyways, you know, those were still pretty popular. But what Eric and I were talking about on the way back to my truck was, I was telling him, I said, don't take this car to a dealership to have the glass replaced. You know, I mean, again, I hadn't been in a lot of trouble with the police, a lot of misdemeanors, but I knew enough to know that rear window was what was going to get us pinched, because, and that's exactly what happened. Because when someone goes to the hospital for a gunshot wound or a knife wound, the hospital has to automatically report that to the police. And that's what they did. And when the Warren detectives went to the hospital to talk to the victim, or the guy who got stabbed, the thing that kept coming up was the fact that there was a black Volkswagen Jetta out there with a broken out rear window. And so the detectives had called around to the dealerships and called around to windshield repair shops and said, hey, if you get a black Volkswagen Jetta, late 90s model, come in that needs a rear windshield.
They put it out on notice.
Yeah, give us a call.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what ended up happening. That's how the ball started rolling for the detectives.
So let's take a quick jump right here. So you get back to your truck. You're on your own now. How many days between that and you nervous during that period of time? You walk around on pins and needles.
That was I got back to my truck, and that was Sunday morning. I went home, and my brother. I told my brother about it. My brother's a couple years older than me.
You stabbed somebody.
Yeah. I told him the story. My brother and I have always been fairly close, so I told him to lay it all out for him, and he was.
What's his advisement?
The words out of his mouth were like, what were you thinking? What the hell were you thinking, Dave? Type of thing. You realize how much trouble you're in. Type of thing. Because I knew that I was in, deep trouble, but I was still in such shock that it hadn't hit me yet. It hadn't hit me about what I was going to be facing or what could happen to me. What was in the future for me. And in the back of my mind, I kept telling myself, because I didn't really have a real good education on the judicial system at that point, which is one thing I did get going through this whole case and everything.
How'd they finally catch up to you?
Well, they, like I said,
and how long did it take?
That was Sunday. Eric, so I tell Eric, don't take it to a dealership. Well, what's he do first thing Monday morning? He takes it to a dealership. And Eric, being a non-confrontational type, before his windshield is fixed at the dealership, the detectives show up. They're there. The dealership called. And Eric, being a non-confrontational type, they put him in the box and sweated him. And for a kid like him, a guy like him who's never been in any trouble, they tell him, all the lies they're gonna tell him, and I'm sure
in order to get the information,
in order to get what they want,
about who did
yeah,
this. Right?
I mean, right down to, well, if we don't catch who did this, you're going to do time for the person, type of thing, and after this is all over with, Eric even told me, he's like, they had me crying, and he was so scared, so, he gave him my name.
So what day is it now?
Monday.
How did they get you? Where are you?
I'm at my place in Dearborn, and
apartment, house.
No, I was staying with my folks at the time.
Okay, your parents' house. Are they home?
Yeah, it was evening time. It was Monday evening, and I had just gotten home from work, and Jason called, and he said, "Hey, I just got home from work, and there is a business card from a Warren detective on my door, to my entry door to my house." And he's like, I'm going to give them a call and see what they know. I'll call you right back. So about an hour goes by. He calls me back, and he says, "Hey, man, you need to call the police department, the Warren Police Department." So he gives me the number that's on the card, and I call, And basically, I pretty much just turned myself in at that point.
So you called them up and said, the guy you're looking for I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you go there, or you have them? Or they come by the house?
No, they came and got me.
Did your parents know about this?
Yeah,
your brother did.
Yeah, my brother did, and I finally told my dad about it. After I made the phone call to the police department, because
afterward, not before.
Yeah, not before, because they said at that point, they were like, "Well, stay right there. We're coming to get you," type of thing. So
you're outside the house. They take you away.
Yeah. So actually, I'm standing out in the driveway. They said they'd be there in an hour. I'm standing outside with my brother. We're having a cigarette, and they pull up. And, the first thing they do is they ask me about, was I involved in an incident that took place at 12 and Mound? They didn't say anything about anybody getting stabbed. And they were talking about a rear window of a car getting broken out. And I said, yeah. And, I was cooperative. I mean, even now when I get stopped for a traffic violation, I'm cooperative with the police. There's, you hear stories about people running from the police and all this stuff. They're not going to get away with it. I mean, there's all you're doing is making things tougher on yourself. I mean, if you're not, there's no reason not to comply.
So they take you in.
So they take me
right,
in.
You processed all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
At what point are you sitting down with them and admitting that you've stabbed someone? And when did you realize the severity of?
When they picked me up on the ride back to the police station, back to the Warren police station there at 12 and or at Van Dyke, and I can't think of it now. Just past 11 Mile, I think. Anyways, on our way back there was when it pretty much sank in.
So I don't want to diminish the court proceedings or anything of that nature. I'm sure it was, difficult.
Right.
But they don't let you out on bail, I would assume. Or do they?
No. At first, I was denied bail, and I didn't get granted bail for 3 weeks.
So you're in holding. Yeah. Were you in holding cell, or they sent you to prison?
No, I was in. Up on floor 10-11, the 10th and 11th floor over on Macomb County Jail, which is the maximum security up there.
When did you find out the degree of the injuries, and what were they to this individual?
When the first time that I was going to. The first time I'd met with my attorney, because he had gotten a copy of the discovery packet, and which contains everybody's statement, the police, their paperwork, their statement, the doctor's reports, all that stuff. And at that point, that's when I found out about what I guess I should say what could have happened. It could have been a lot worse. Apparently, I had missed his spleen by 1/4 of an inch. And I'm not a doctor, obviously. I haven't done much research on it, but from what I do know and what I've heard is if the spleen gets ruptured in any way, it can be a matter of moments. Unless I'm wrong, but from what I've heard.
I think, let's say I think it's a pretty important part of your body.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that? I mean, what injuries did he incur?
that was it. And he got a he had a there was a puncture, a slight penetration to his lower lung on the left side, which they were saying was probably from the first stab because
of the distance from the skin to the lung.
I had come almost horizontal across, whereas the second time I had kind of come downward. Okay. But
well, how did that make you feel when you heard about it later? I mean, you've got a few days to settle on this, minimum, right? Weeks, if not. I mean, how you feel when you hear about this person's injuries? Is there any emotion about it, or are you still in the mode of, oh, that's what you got?
No, I wasn't. I didn't feel like that. That's what you get. He deserved it, or anything like that. But I certainly, at this point, was more concerned about my own skin than his well-being. To be honest.
Well, but your mindset had changed a bit, obviously.
Yeah.
Because during the stabbing, you were in the mode of, that's what I got you.
Right.
Feeling like you're the big guy, right? And now, a few weeks later, things are calmed down, settled in. I wouldn't say calm for you, but you're distant from the incident, right?
Right.
So think your mind's being a little bit more logical, right? So.
Right. There wasn't any remorse at that time.
Do you have remorse now?
Yeah. I mean I of course now my thinking, being 40 now, I think a lot differently than I did when I was 20, or in my 20s, of course, and I'm grateful that nothing happened to the individual severely. The bigger picture of, what if his mother lost her son, and things of that nature. I am grateful that nothing, no organs were hit or anything like that would have changed his life, drastically. I mean, I know I was facing an uphill battle myself, but, at night when you're all alone in the dark and you reflect on the day and you have these thoughts in your head of what you've done and where you've been, one of the last things that I want to have hanging over my head is knowing that I've hurt someone to the degree that I've changed their life for the worse, or
to some degree, you didn't hit his spleen. His lung didn't rupture.
Right.
But you did change his life.
Right.
For the not for the better.
No.
At that time.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not. I think that there's reasons, there's degrees of crimes. And that is whether there's intent or not, whether there's forethought, and so on and so forth.
Right.
But I mean, you'd agree that no matter what, he went through that incident as well and didn't get the best of the outcomes comparatively, right? So, but with that being said, what do you think would have happened if you didn't have the knife? This isn't a pro or anti anything. It's a question of it's a matter of, if you have the weapon on you, you're more likely to use it, type of thing, right? So,
right.
What do you think would have happened if you didn't have it on you? You just guys would have brawled it out or let it go, or were you more bold because you had it on you?
No, I think I think we would have.
It's a woulda, right?
You
can't go back. But
definitely would. I mean, I think we would have, totally brawled it out. But at the same time, there's not, and honestly, not a day goes by that I don't think about this incident because, my life has been changed over it, and it could have been changed even more severely than it was. But at the same time, I always try to look for the good in the bad of things. And if nothing else, this incident has, opened my eyes, has changed my thinking a lot, has calmed me down a lot. Not, ever since this happened. And, some of that could be that I've been getting older over the years. But, I almost feel like I needed something like this to happen because I was a hothead at times. I was, quick to jump into any kind of altercation.
Do you think that you were destined to have something happen one way or another in order to slow you down?
Yeah, I do.
It was either going to be this or something else.
Correct. Yeah.
Given that you're in your 20s, that's not to say if you're doing that now. I mean, a lot of this is speculation. Certainly the woulda, coulda, shoulda stuff, right?
Right.
I guess the question is more about if you have a weapon on you, are you more likely to use it than not? Because if you didn't have it, obviously that wouldn't have happened. You probably would have still gone at it for a while, would be my guess.
Right.
Nonetheless, moving on. So they charge you. It sounds like the most serious portion. You got 7 felonies in total.
5.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't want to aggravate the
Add
situation.
more felonies on.
Add more felonies. I think 5's enough. I don't think we need to name them all. The one that is intent to murder sounds to be the one that really people wanted to stick with. The word intent obviously has its connotation, and its definition is you intended to do it. That says you were, in their view, you intended to kill this guy.
Right.
In your view, that was that the intent in that moment? We talked about that moment before. You're kind of hyped up about it, but you were just swinging for wherever he was vulnerable, you said.
Right.
You explained to your attorney. Who's your attorney? A public defender, or you got a good attorney?
I had gotten my...
Not that public defenders aren't good.
No.
A paid attorney or a public defender?
It was a paid attorney.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who paid for that?
My parents did.
Parents put it on. It wasn't cheap, I imagine.
No, it was. It actually was $30,000 up front, win or lose.
So, did you have an option at some point to? Let's assume a period of time goes by. You're out on bail. You said at this juncture, right? But you're being called back to court.
Yeah,
on and off. Your attorney advises you at some point that you can go to trial. I would assume that's the way the system works, or you can cut a deal with the district attorney's office.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right. Correct. Yeah. And
what's the deal that they offer you?
The deal that I was offered was 5 years probation. Reporting once a week, alcohol test, drug test once a week, along with community service, restitution, and I think there was one other thing in there, but I can't remember, but the big one was the 5 years probation.
And is this the outcome of the collective of all 5 felonies?
Yeah,
or is that just for the one?
Well, what happened was they had dropped. 2 of the 5 felonies off. And when they proposed this deal of, offering me the 5 years probation, and, like we were talking in the beginning of this, it was an election year, because at first I wanted to go to trial because the way my attorney had spoken to me about this and what he had presented to me was that the outcome could be that it was self-defense. I mean, he did, he came at me,
So what was the inverse, though? Meaning the risk of doing that is also a maximum sentence of what?
Well, that's it. Yeah, there would have been no deal. It would have been I would have been sentenced when it came to sentencing. I would have been sentenced by the judge, and again, being that it was an election year, being that I was told directly that I was going to be made an example out of.
These helped in making your decision about whether to take a deal or not.
Yeah.
What was the maximum sentence potential?
It would have been 25 to life. So in Michigan, 25 years is a life sentence. So I would have I'd still be in prison today, right now, if
you'd still have 10 years to go.
Yeah, I'd still
Minimum.
have, yeah, and that's if I was I had good behavior on the inside. I mean, who knows when you get there, and you get if you get into fights in there or anything happens, you get more time added on. So the 5 years probation was not a
probation, not parole.
Yeah, probation. Yeah, so that was freedom. That was there was no real argument in my mind with that.
You took it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You're like, I'll take this.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you feel about all this today? I mean, you said you have remorse about it, but have you seen the victim at all?
No.
Do you know who he is?
I know his name, but that was part of the deal too, was there was to be no contact or anything like that. And that's the way I feel about all this today is that, like you were saying, I feel that this in a way had to happen to me, because that there were, I believe there's lessons that people need to learn in life, and there's this had helped calm me down a lot. It made me more aware of.
Do you think you were? It's a difficult proposition. Let me tell you why. Because, and I'm not going to twist your words on you, so go ahead and respond. Okay, it is essentially saying, I mean, in dealing with the facts only, right? That in order for me to make sure I didn't get in greater trouble, this person needed to be stabbed. That might be a harsh way of putting it, or the outcome would have been that you would have done something worse in your mind, potentially.
Well, I don't think so much that that he needed to be stabbed in order for me to learn my life lessons. That he needed to be stabbed. I see it as I needed to have my eyes opened up to the reality and to what was going on around me, some of the people I was hanging out with and the decisions I was making in life, that I needed to not necessarily stab someone, but I needed to get myself into a situation where
you needed an awakening.
I needed kind of a kick in the ass, so to speak.
If you will. This just happened to be it for you.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, in closing, if you had, given that there's no contact order, and certainly we're not even mentioning the name of this person, but if he was here, what would you say to him?
Just that it was definitely an unnecessary incident that that took place, and fueled by alcohol and drugs, and I'm sorry that that it happened to him, and that he was part of whatever, I hate to say whatever it was that I had to go through to learn what I had to learn, but that I guess and that I'm grateful that nothing more severe happened. To him, definitely. I mean,
We appreciate you telling your story, Dave.
Well, thank you for having me.